tēnā koutou katoa. We acknowledge that there is a strength beyond ourselves when we work together to serve others. May we put aside our own personal interests, work with integrity and openness, striving to create a community that supports its people and the environment. Let us, in a moment of quiet, focus on why we are here. We give thanks for the wisdom of the past, look for opportunities in the present, and accept the challenges of the future. Tēnei te mihi kia koutou katoa. Kia pai te hare. Thank you. Welcome all to our extraordinary council meeting. I'd just like to advise that we are live streaming, of course, however there's no other recordings being taken today. We have no apologies today, great to have a full house. And do we have any conflicts of interest? Very good. Announcements by the Mayor. I would just like to take a moment to welcome our Acting Chief Executive, Neil Taylor, who is here to hold the fort for us for the next 4 weeks, and I'm sure, like me, you're all looking forward to working alongside him over that period of time, so welcome. Thank you. And I would also just like to take a moment to acknowledge a very, very loyal and long-serving member of our senior leadership team, and he's going to be sitting over there grimacing, Lance Titter, who had his 40 years of service on the 18th of February, and he tried to keep it very much on the down low. However, I didn't think that that could go past unacknowledged by ourselves as the governors, so I did want to take the opportunity to say a sincere thank you and acknowledge those many, many years of hard work and service to the Napier City Council. Now, are there any announcements by management? Very good. Okay, so we do have one agenda item before us today. It would be fair to say it's a fairly hefty one. And we are looking at the draft annual plan for 2021 and the associated consultation material. So I will just, first of all, I'd like to acknowledge the many, many hours of work that have gone in to get us to this stage of our annual plan process, to the whole of the finance team, Caroline, the rest of her team, and of course Adele. So thank you for that, and I know that there's still many, many hours of work to go, and we look forward to working alongside you as you work on that. And I would just invite Adele to speak to the paper and highlight some of the key points.
Thank you, and through the Mayor. So the purpose of today is to acknowledge the seminars that Council have had over the last few months, and the direction setting from those meetings that we've had, and to document how they then feed into the annual plan process and to form the underlying information. Once this information is agreed and adopted today, officers can go away and prepare a consultation document that will then be able to be shared with the community for their feedback on where we're at. So just going through the resolutions, if I may. So when we were going through the process, we are looking at an average proposed rates increase for the 2021 year of 6.5%. Now, alongside this process, Council will also be engaging with the community around the revenue and financing policy, and those impacts will be separate to the impacts of the overall average increase. So there will be overs and unders as a result of the change in allocation through the revenue and financing policy. The revenue and financing policy will be adopted by Council on the 31st of March, and we will be looking towards being consulting at the same time as the annual plan. So some of the major items that we're looking to inform the community around are the waste and management costs. So the proposed impact on rates for 2021 for the curbside waste collection is 1.3%. But we're also looking to spread that over 2 years. We're looking to use some of our reserves from our Omanuri Reserve to spread the impact, and the following year's increase will be looking at a 0.8% increase. So there is a 2-year impact to bring that cost in. Council identified water as their number one priority, and aside from the resolutions that are in front of Council today, I can acknowledge that the total spend now for the 2021 year is $24.9 million in capital. So we're looking at the resolutions around the number one priority. So it's noting that the water master plan has been brought to Council in a separate paper. And of the additional work that Council are undertaking for 2021 of 12.1 million, 7.3 million relates to water supply. Council will have are looking to include budget of $200,000 for the coronation review. And then we're looking at $200,000 for the development of a water safety plan. There's additional work required for the outfall of $4 million, and this work is required for money's been brought forward from our renewal funding for that particular project. So I've just noted in my comments around we're $24.9 million for the Three Waters projects for 2021. So in relation to the Whakarere revetment, so there's been considerable consultation with the community to date, and what we're noting through the resolutions today is that we will be requiring to increase the amount of the budget because of the time delays in getting that project completed, and that as a result we would like to hold the amount that we'll be seeking from the those private for that public-private split, and the original recommendation was a 3%, 97% split, and we're now proposing moving it to 2.5% and 97.5%. We were also looking at the requirements around Te Awa, and there's new funding which will be funded from development contributions of $2.3 million included in the plan. There's a resolution to look at funding for the long-term plan of $240,000, and we're seeking funding from the Urban and Suburban Growth Fund for that. There's an increased need to work with our community and ensure that we engage correctly, so the recommendation on the table is to increase funding for community engagement of $100,000 for the following year, and that again is to be funded from the Suburban and Urban Growth Fund. As I noted earlier, there are some changes that are also impacting the next year's annual plan and our rating, and so those changes will be brought back to Council on the 31st of March. So the next two go together. And provided to Council is also an update to the capital plan. We have provided the remaining 8 years of the long-term plan as an update to Council, but we're looking just for the approval for the 1 year of the annual plan for the changes. So I think the rest of the resolutions follow through. And yeah, so as I said, today is around agreeing those assumptions. And for officers to go away and consult, and I'll just refer you to page 16, under the significance and engagement section, is what we'd like to talk to the community about with specific consultation. So the specific matters include the library site selection. Now we can provide more information if councillors would like to talk to that, but there will be a paper coming to Council on the 26th of March to talk about the process that they've undertaken to date and over the last year around the library strategy, and including the long list of options in relation to the library and where it might be located in the future. And what we'd like to do now is, through the annual plan, is to seek some feedback from the community on the preferred option. We're then looking at informing the community around our water-related projects, our waste minimisation costs, provide the community an update on our major projects, inform them where we're at with our community housing project, Te Pahinga, street management, which includes providing for the cost of replacing CCTV cameras in the city, the Whakarere revetment, our capital plan, and then the amendments to the revenue and financing policy. So they're the matters on which we're going to inform. and I'm happy to take any questions. I do have the finance team here available if you've got any specific questions in relation to the financials. I do note that as per the long-term plan, we were looking to move to $30 million of debt, and the requirements for our cash as part of this annual plan process will be looking for $20 million of external debt.
Thank you. Adele, I'll open the floor to questions. Councillor Bowe.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of questions around the water issues in this paper, please. The first one was, it was good to see that there are 2 new bores being explored to reduce the manganese in the system, and I guess that is to deal with the situation that people currently have with the dirty water, I guess. Yes. Sorry.
So the 2 new bores proposed are in keeping with our wider strategy, which is part of the water master plan, but yet bringing those fields back in lieu of the final master plan being presented in order to try and bring or fast track the orders.
Excellent, thank you. And just one other question, and perhaps Madam Mayor, you might be able to answer. In regards to the chlorination review, I wondered if there was an update what's happening or not happening in Christchurch?
I haven't had an update from Christchurch. I'm not sure if management has heard anything further. And while you're standing, John, a couple of questions from myself. I note that there's this water supply master plan. When is that report going to be coming to council? Okay, it is going. And also the additional 200,000 that's being proposed for the water safety plan. Is that to actually essentially update our water safety plan for the increased regulatory measures that are coming through?
I'll try and keep it as an answer. Essentially, it's recognising that the people have to move to the new water safety plan template, and regardless of what our operation might look like into the future, we still need to move to a template and that is not required for the work down the there. And so we're just looking to secure that process.
And are there some timeframes we need to meet around that?
At this point, I believe there is, but depending on the market and what we actually might do. If we move to our proposed two bore field approach, that is the need for a new research.
Right, okay, thank you. Councillor Crown.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm actually unsure as to who I need to direct my question to, so let's see how it goes. On page 15, 1.3 under issues, we have the Provincial Growth Fund. There are 4 items there where we have had no formal feedback received, and I was just wondering if anyone had an update in regards to where that process is at, or if they could offer us a time frame that we might be expecting information in that regard.
Thank you, Richard.
We're not in position to see how we're
Yeah. Sorry, if you could come up to the microphone here. We would hate for you to miss out on being live streamed. John, you got off the hook.
Through you. Unfortunately, we're not in a position really to be able to update on those 4 those 4 applications. We haven't had a lot of dialogue with the Provincial Growth Fund as such, and there are some issues around some of those which are in various stages of progression with various bodies. So I think probably the better thing to do at the moment is direct us to try and find some answers for you, and we can bring that back to the table.
Thank you. Before you disappear, Richard, now might be an opportune time for you to just provide some further information around the inclusion of the library site selection in the annual plan process.
Certainly. So the library has gone through quite a process of trying to find its eventual home, and that culminated last year in the working party for the library, which was made up of councillors and staff, doing a site prioritisation of 17 sites, and that process led to the selection of one of the sites, the old site actually, where the library was, being the preferred option. Now that work hasn't formally been taken to the council table, and we're proposing to do that very shortly in conjunction with the other projects, which are the hotel and the civic buildings, with a view that there is a work to do on a precinct that is where the old council and library buildings were, the civic buildings. And as part of that paper, the library will be part of, I guess, a wider master plan for that whole area, and that paper will signal some of those issues and what's next really in those terms, including accepting the working party's work and then looking for some public feedback from this process, the annual plan, as to validating those findings in the interim.
Thank you. Open the floor to any, yes,
Another
Councillor
question.
Lowe.
Sorry, it's concerning community housing. My question is, when the consultation document goes out on the 7th of April, what kind of information will we be seeking, or feedback will we be seeking from the community in terms of our community housing?
Kia ora, through the chair. We'll be merely updating the community of where we're at with the strategic review. So we will be talking about the options currently being investigated as part of that review. So there won't be any decisions at that point. So it's really just to provide an update on the progress of the review, and then a separate consultation process will be undertaken once those options are brought to you for your recommendation.
Councillor Brown. Through you, Madam Mayor, I've actually got 3 points. The first one's on page 16, para 1.4. There's a list of 11 things, and just street management is listed twice. Is that just a typo, or is there 2 different? Yeah, typo. Cool. On the bottom of page 12, and the proposed change to the revenue and financing policy, we workshopped that we were going to bring other community organisations in line with sporting facilities. So under the Section 1 of the Rating Act, all sporting facilities get a 50% rate permission, and we workshopped that we were going to bring the other community organisations such as community halls and stuff in line with that, with the rate permission, so that's missing in this document. Thank you. And I've mentioned it before as well. Thank you. And then right at the end, the aquarium prices. My recollection was that those were going to hold, and I see there's an increase. So that's in the fees and charges table you're referring to? Yes. Yes. Right. Let it go from there. Page 88. you're questioning around the proposed fee increase for the aquarium, and we had a conversation around holding those prices. If we could have a comment from staff on that one.
Through you, Madam Mayor, your recollection is correct, Councillor Brown. The council did discuss, in light of the unknown decisions yet to be made around the aquarium, and some of the feedback we've had to date with a few things happening at the aquarium, that we should hold the fees and charges, and unfortunately that just hasn't been translated into this document. So I'm sure Mrs Henderson can advise of the process how to make that amendment. Also, there was the library fees and charges, which there's an error there that needed to be corrected too, so maybe we could do that at the same time.
Great, thank you. And the resolution? Thank you. We might deal with that amendment now before we move on. So if we just add we can either amend O. Corrections. Perfect. Thank you. There's a lot of recommendations. Library fees and charges. What was the specific changes to the library charges? Yeah.
Through you, Madam Mayor, on page 73 under the library charges, there's a few charges there in terms of book rentals and magazine rentals, where it says no charge. However, we do charge for those, and the library manager advised me that it should probably be no change, but I'm not too sure whether that's correct, because there's a lot of other no charges throughout the fees and charges document, so something we need to look at.
Yeah. Perhaps note that as just as a review of those, if we're not absolutely certain at this stage that they're. Thank you. Deputy Governor.
Thank you. I had a recollection of a body of work we were doing over a number of years to strengthen council buildings in terms of seismic strengthening. However, I note on page 132 the capital funding for ongoing seismic strengthening of council buildings stops in the current year we're in, with no ongoing forecast. And I just wonder, is there some rationale behind that? Has the money been moved out of that line into, say, specific building lines, or what's happened there?
Thank you. Who's best to answer that? Adele, thank you.
Through the Mayor. So we have obviously been working through the assessments on the buildings, and there were only a number of buildings that have been identified as needing quite strengthening work, one being the Square, and then we've got the Harris stand, but these works aren't considered significant, and so we can look to include those once we've got more details, include them in the long-term plan. So we've effectively gone through our long list. So the exposure that we had originally when we were doing that review work has now been mitigated basically because we've identified all of our building requirements.
Okay, so just so my understanding is correct, we have undergone strengthening work on all council buildings that require it other than those two you've just identified, and we will identify funding for them specific in the LTP.
Through the year, as the work won't be required next year, the design etc. has to be undertaken.
Thank you.
Any further questions? No. So, just as a summary, we're here today to formally approve the underlying information for our next annual plan and approve the key decisions from Council for the development of that draft annual plan and the consultation document that will be going out from the 7th of April to discuss with our community. So this document will outline the key changes, why the changes are proposed, and the effect of those changes, including the rates impact. As you've seen from the screen behind me and your papers, there are a number of components to today's resolution. However, there actually are no matters that we're going out in the consultation process with options. They are informed pieces. So the significance of the changes that are before us do require them to be informed, but because we're not actually considering options, it is really just sharing that information with our community and seeking their feedback and input. And of course, there's nothing to preclude our community to bringing other issues to us throughout the annual plan consultation process as well. So as the chair, I'm happy to move the motion. If I could ask for a seconder. Oh, where do I go first? Councillor Taylor, you're closest. I mean, I've pretty much outlined my summary of the situation. Councillor Taylor, did you wish to? No? Would anyone else like to speak to the motion before us today?
Could I just say I do fully support the motion. I'm very pleased that we are going to have a hearing in June to hear submissions where people want to speak to us face to face.
I just had a couple of points I wanted to speak to. One was the inclusion of the library site selection. I think it's really quite a good time in the process we've been working through under the previous council, and a big shout out to everyone who worked on the information that we're going to receive formally at my committee meeting in a couple of weeks' time on that project. The Mayor would know through the huddles that this is one of the topics that gets raised most frequently, is around how's council going with the library and where will it be, including some of our staff from inside the MTG I know ask us that every now and then as well. So I think this is a really apt time for us to be what I consider putting a quick win in front of the community in terms of cementing that preferred site location, and sets us up really nicely for the work to be done on the how and the when included in that whole precinct. So I just wanted to speak in support of including that in this consultation document. The other note that I really wanted to make, and it's really important that we do make that note when we're going into a hearing process, is that we need funding to be able to be responsive to community issues that get raised during submissions. And I'd just like us to all turn our minds to how much flexibility we have to be responsive to issues as they arise, not only during the consultation process and period, but also during the year. That's something that I'm really conscious that we give some consideration to when we move through to our hearing process. Thank you.
Thank you. So just to wrap up in my right of reply, I'm really excited about some of the things that we are going out to our community with in this particular annual plan. One for me is the Te Pihinga project for our Maraenui community, and moving forward with providing them with a community space and some facilities for their rangatahi and tamariki, in fact their community at whole. And certainly community housing is something that here as a city and as a region we need to be focusing on and moving forward. And as Deputy Mayor Brosnan has said, the library in particular is something that I get asked about at my weekly town huddle, and it's great to be able to go out to our community and share that information with them around that site selection process and move forward. So I'm looking forward to those conversations and meeting with our community. And that being said, I will now put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much. That went quicker than expected. So I will call the meeting closed.